Hello, let's talk about Bloop. I would like to introduce you to this new way that I've been using to rapidly build websites that are performant and accessible. And they're using two technologies that are very popular, well-resourced, easy to troubleshoot. That's WordPress and Bootstrap. I am convinced, is just an ideal way to create really robust, user-friendly brochure websites. Not necessarily web apps. If you were going to create your own social media platform, this is probably not the way you're going to do some newfangled JavaScript-y thing. But for a static site that is going to be managed by non-nerds, and by static there, I meant like not undergoing a lot of like user-generated content and heavy interaction, but displaying content that is like pages and posts, news updates, portfolios, things like that. Allow me to introduce myself if you don't know me. I am Arlie. I have been building websites since the mid-90s. I've worked on well over 1,000 websites for clients ranging from mom and pop shops all the way up to large Fortune 500 companies here in Canada, including BlackBerry and Tim Hortons. And I am convinced that the best way for teams to get a lot of websites done and done well is to use good workflows, good reliable tools that don't require a lot of testing. And so blueprints or boilerplates or whatever you want to call them, I'm convinced is the ultimate workflow. You want an A+ starting point so that you can quickly create B+ websites. When I see B+ there, what I mean is trusting Google when they say launch early and launch often, meaning you're going to launch as soon as your website is like 1% better than whatever you have now. Or if you don't have a site, launch at B+, and then just continue to iterate it. In a way, your website is never finished. So with our Bloop blueprint, we are using WordPress as the CMS. WordPress claims to have built every year it's bigger, like 30% of the internet or something like that, or 30% of websites. I'm not sure where they get that number, but I'm sure that no matter what, it is a staggering amount of people using WordPress. It is quite popular. It's extendable through plugins. You can do just about anything you want with it. If you Google, how do I do X with WordPress? Somebody's probably done it and probably blogged about it. And so, yeah, it's pretty good in that way. And then the front end that we use, we build upon Bootstrap. Bootstrap is also open source. It's a front end library that has been built by some of the greatest front end developers of all time. Just by downloading it, you're inheriting like 1 million hours of effort and thought. And so I think it's pretty good. It's like the difference between building something with Lego or building it from scratch. And the best thing about it to me is that it is object oriented. So you have padding classes to create like a consistent amount of space around things throughout your site. You have really clear class names. If all you took from Bootstrap was the class names and you built in Webflow, you'd still be coming out way ahead rather than trying to name things yourself. So these two technologies are really available, widely written about, widely tested, meaning you're not going to be finding really basic bugs on these. But they are not perfect. And there are a lot of critics to these things. And so I will list a few advantages. They are built with some speed in mind, meaning you can have user experience as your priority and get things done with these websites. They're easy to troubleshoot with anybody who's even mildly technical. There's lots that you could just find on Google and somebody has done the thing. When you do get stumped, I know WordPress in particular has a fantastic community. If you ask for help on the WordPress.org forums, people help you and they help you quickly. Versus some other communities, you'll get responses like, why haven't you read the whole forum first? Which isn't as helpful. It's easy to find experts for WordPress and Bootstrap if you needed to hire someone. Or for that matter, ChatGPT can help you write a plugin for WordPress or create, I need this and this in Bootstrap. It'll write it for you. And finally, the way that we use these things together, as I'm going to demonstrate in the next video, it gives you full control on the markup so that internationalization or building in other languages or accessibility, SEO, user experience, you have full control over that stuff, and you're not at the mercy of whatever plugin developer or theme developer has built for you. There are other platforms. There's a million ways to build websites. And back in the day when I was on Twitter, the trend always seemed to be the newest, latest, and greatest thing. And some of those would really pick up momentum and speed. I think about React 10 years ago. But the problem there is that those technologies are iterating so quickly that you then have a different kind of ongoing maintenance thing. It can be quite expensive to develop in those ways. Bootstrap and WordPress themselves are evolving as well. So there can be some of that maintenance, but it can be a lot more hands-on with other technology platforms. And a lot of those are oriented towards the web application kind of frontier. So my conviction personally is to not change platforms for iterative reasons. Only jump ship if you're going to be seeing like a 2x or a 10x improvement on some very core fundamental advantage. Most websites will not live to see a 5-year birthday. If you look at a lot of commerce websites, 10 years is considered quite old for websites. And the reality is whatever we're building is not going to stand the test of time. And that isn't necessarily because of the technologies themselves, although even like the servers, everything's evolving constantly, but design trends and tastes and what people expect from the internet keeps changing. So it's best, I believe, to optimize for what your team can manage at scale. If you're going to be managing 100 websites, you want them to be built relatively the same, and so that you can hire people, get them up to speed. Everybody's developing the same way. So with that preamble out of the way, I want to show you Bloop, which is my starting point or blueprint that I use when I'm building one of these sites. Blueprint is actually the name of a starting point within local WP, which is an awesome local environment for developing. And I will say, as a non-YouTuber, probably what I'm talking about here sounds like I'm trying to pitch you on a thing that you can use, a product that I'm making, but it's actually not that. This is a WordPress starting point using premium plugins that I have licensed. I can't freely distribute it, but I am making this video for the volunteers that I work with, the people that I work very closely with every day. But I wanted to share this as well to inspire others who might not know about this tool set and might want to create their own starting point platform like this. Additionally, we have one key plugin that makes the WordPress and Bootstrap sort of unity come together. And that is this plugin here. It's called Live Canvas. This image that you're seeing here, this animated GIF or video, is showing some of the things that are a lot like other page builders. People have fallen in love with Elementor or Divi, Beaver Builder, things like this. And Live Canvas is, positioning themselves as a competitor to that. But the thing that makes it different is this part here, you can edit the HTML. And that has a lot of advantages that we'll get to. But like if you are familiar with code at all and you have things set up in your code editor, this is a really great tool. Engineered for performance, it says. This green circle here, this would be like a Google Page Speed Insights, or if you go to Lighthouse, where is that? So this is an extension for the browser. It can rank your site, give you a score. Other page builders will add JavaScript and CSS at like a 1-to-1 ratio. The more you add to a page, the more bloated it can get. I'm sure there are exceptions to that, but that has been my unscientific experience. Live Canvas is calling in Bootstrap. So critics will say like, that's a pretty big JavaScript and CSS, but it is like, it's all the Lego bricks and your whole site will be using just that collection. And in your child theme, you can turn off the components that you're not using. So that is pretty handy. Another thing that you get out of the box is accessibility, or at least the ability to have accessibility. So here I am on the Bootstrap documentation site. If I wanted an accordion set, that's these things here. This is called an accordion. You might see these on like frequently asked questions. You can see the markup here. Here's the button that says accordion item 1. Here's the content that was within there. And then in this markup example, we have some accessibility considerations. So we have aria expanded equals true, meaning it's going to be expanded when it's loaded on the page. A screen reader can read all that. And this controls collapse 1, which is the ID of this content. What this does is it allows screen readers and search engines to understand the context of this thing. Otherwise, it would just seem like a bunch of divs or a bunch of just blocks of content. But using these ARIA tags, we're giving context to these things. And it is my superstitious belief that this improves your SEO. I believe everybody should be explicit that it is superstition when we talk about SEO, because companies like Google tend to keep it pretty closely guarded secret how they rank your websites. In 2007, approximately 150 web years ago, they changed the algorithm over 400 times, which is more than once a year, or sorry, more than once a day in that year. And so all you can do is follow web standards and best practices. And so if you start taking into consideration the schema.org microformats and your web accessibility and really putting the user experience first, my experience is that Google tends to reward that, and those sites will rank well. And I just love that Live Canvas gives me the ability, little alarm there. Live Canvas gives me the ability to edit that markup. And so I've seen it in the past where a website wants like tabs or something like that. So they've had to install a plugin to allow for that. That plugin may not have those accessibility considerations. They may not allow your website to work from right to left, like Arabic or other languages. And so with Live Canvas, you get the ability to do that. I have built a website before for a language. I think 1 million people speak it in the world. 1 million is a huge number, but like in the context of 8 billion people, it's very little. Without Live Canvas, I would have had to do that some other way. WordPress for sure does not support that in its core supported languages. So Live Canvas is pretty spectacular. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to build a page using that. Like other page builders, Live Canvas does give you the ability to click a big button that says add a section, and you can pick some predefined sort of layout components and then configure them without touching any code. But there are drawbacks to this. With any no-code platform, even Squarespace, stuff outside of WordPress, you know, they're trying to give you as a non-coder the ability to create a website without knowing code. But there are trade-offs. There are things you can lose with that. And I mean, that's not knocking those things. Like it does help to make it more accessible to a non-coder to build a website. But this is an inherently complex thing. It's not that any of the details of building a website are too complicated for anyone, but it's just like you need to remember 10,000 of these little simple facts. And so Live Canvas is one of those where it's giving you the ability to do that. But uniquely is the ability to edit the code. In WordPress, typically in the past, we could have gone and made a page and then gone to the HTML tab and put in some code. But then if you switch to the other, like the sort of WYSIWYG and hit save, sometimes you would lose those spans or divs. And that stuff has changed over the versions of WordPress, and you just never know what's going to happen or what's going to happen in the next version. But Live Canvas sort of simplifies all of that and just gives you access to the pure markup. And once you have created something with Bootstrap, and you've tested it and it works on all the browsers, it's easy to copy paste that from one project to the next. And when you've built a whole bunch of websites in this way, and you bring somebody else into the team, those websites actually become documentation. And like, oh, I want to do, you know, something like we had on this site. You can actually just get that code and it will work from one site to the other. The name Bloop, it's just short for blueprint. Not a lot of thought went into it. And that's because it's not the product. The end product is the website that you're building. And so that's where the effort needs to go. It's always about the end user who's visiting the website. And if you are building a site to be managed by like a non-code editor, then that is also like a primary audience. You need to make the back end as intuitive as possible. And so that's where I feel like this tool set is really coming together quite well. I began building this sort of workflow in 2018 with a previous team that I was on, and have used it on probably dozens of websites, and it's continued to evolve until this point. And now I'm finally making some documentation videos for it. Previous to this, I worked in a shop that did not use WordPress, did not use Bootstrap. but it still used an object-oriented framework, and we still always prioritized the user experience, the workflow, and the ability to work at scale. At one point, my team and I managed over 300 websites, and it was awesome to be able to take something from one site, put it into another, to be able to hire a junior developer, and within a couple weeks, their code is indistinguishable from like somebody who's been doing it for years. And so the workflow is great. It's good for the team. It's good for the user. It's good for the performance of the website, the end result of it. And that's really what it's all about. You want to be able to ship quickly, reliably, consistently, to be able to answer support requests that come in, and not be reinventing the wheel every single time. So in summary, the workflow first. If you're not into Bootstrap or WordPress and you don't know me, this video series is not for you. But if you're one of the 10 people who I sent this to, I am looking for your feedback. This is probably the rough draft of this whole video documentation series. So your comments, your constructive feedback for the version 2 will be quite helpful. I'm excited to be building some websites with you. Let's go finish the internet.